system. I just don't have it wired in yet under the hood to monitor our 12-volt system. But again, all of the lights and turn signals and brake lights and things like that are connected, and everything is up and running. Try to get a little bit better shot of the speedometer and 0 miles. Very nice. I thought that was appropriate. And there's our tachometer there. And like I say, we restored our door panels, new window cranks, and went with the deluxe door handles. Those were with the car when I bought it. Replaced the armrest. Those were non-existent when I bought the car, and again, all these things were purchased on eBay. But let everybody kind of see that, and obviously had one mirror on the car. That was that. Besides the rear view mirror on the main window. Turn my ignition off there. We'll move around to the front. Here we go. A lot of the wires are not tucked away yet as I'm still running tests, but this is the final version here of how it looks under the hood. Not necessarily final. I've got quite a few things. Obviously, our box that we showed you earlier is going to go up here as well. That has all of our controls for our pump. But this is our external pump here for the transmission, and bump the Monte Carlo bar there. Try to get a better shot of that, but pretty simple, really. To get that mounted, it's isolated on rubber mounts, so it doesn't vibrate the car or anything like that. Using the high pressure Teflon hose with the braided sleeve, and then we come back here, and down there is our this is the one-way check valve to keep pressure when the transmission pump takes over. This keeps pressure from back feeding into our auxiliary pump, and it actually works quite well. I've got my pressure gauge connected to it right now, and I've run a few tests. Like I said, at full power, this pump moves such a huge amount of volume, and at such high pressure, it could actually damage the pistons and the seals in the transmission. So we'll limit that with the mini motor controller. And I was really pleased with how the motor itself turned out. We were able to obviously clean it up and repaint it. We used back in the day when we were doing a lot of performance engine builds, we used a product called Gliptol that is an electrically insulative enamel paint that is amazingly durable. It resists gasoline and oil and all kinds of chemicals, and we use that to coat the inside of the casing before we reinstalled the field coils, rewrapped the field coils with new fiberglass tape, and that's a lot like wrapping handlebars on a 10-speed. If anybody ever back in the day ever wrapped their own handlebars, or maybe like wrapping a baseball bat or a tennis racket on the handle, very similar to that. Just you start at one end and wrap until you're covered. But that went very well, and got the motor put back together, and I'm very pleased. It advanced the timing 10 degrees, and got that set up. Again, not hard to do. Very similar to advancing the timing on a camshaft in an ICE motor. Anyways, this is our version of the Blow Me, if it's okay to use that name. Probably shouldn't. Sorry about that, Jack. But basically, I went with 4-inch Spectre cold air intake stuff, which is available on the shelf at most of your aftermarket auto suppliers. I think O'Reilly or AutoZone Commercial, any of those guys will have these this tubing, and this was actually one of their adapters for a mass airflow sensor that I cut down and made fit on the motor that I have here. And again, this is a 4-inch blower, high volume. At 12 volts, it'll do about 300 CFM. At 24 volts, it's about 550 CFM. Very quiet and very powerful. It will certainly provide us with enough air across our armature to keep things nice and cool while we're driving the car. And probably even on race days, I'm actually going to run that at 24 volts. I'm going to get a little buck boost converter and bump my 12 volts up on that one item there to 24, so we get that full 550 CFM of cooling power to keep the dust and the heat off of that armature. That's critical on these motors. They're not designed to just lay there and run without being cooled down. And what you have to remember is you may have an internal fan on your DC motor, but when it's critical is when you come to a stop and that motor stops spinning, your heat spikes at that point. That happens on anything you ask to do work, whether it's your own body. If you're out running and playing and you come to a stop, your temperature spikes. If you're in a gasoline-powered car, you come to a stop, the temperature spikes. It's no different with this, and you've got to have forced air through these motors to keep them alive. Otherwise, you'll just melt the armatures, especially if you're out running the highway and things like that, where where these batteries, these lithium batteries, can take us now up on the highway to run for 35, 40 minutes, or even an hour. At freeway speeds, and everything's fine while you're moving down the freeway. You've got plenty of RPM and your internal fan is moving plenty of air. When you come off the freeway and you come to that traffic light, your temperature is going to spike, and that's pretty much going to melt the formica in your armature. So very important, and that was very low dollar. I think I might have about $95 in that whole setup right there, between the blower, the filter, and all the plumbing. A total of about $95, so not a lot of money to spend for insurance policy. Obviously we've got our Zilla, getting it mounted, got it mounted on a piece of aluminum. I've got my ceramic ball bearing liquid pump here. I've yet to get my tank put in for that, but obviously we will. Here's our hairball. And I did get this converted over to the HEPA pedal, which got that in the car. Found that on eBay as well. These are our cooling radiators here. Obviously, a low pressure drop radiator for the transmission, and that is down here. I know it's hard to see. High performance, low pressure drop cooler for our transmission fluid, and then we have the cooler here for the Zilla, which it doesn't require a lot to keep it cool. So main thing there is moving the appropriate amount of fluid through that chill plate that's built into the Zilla. And what else? Obviously, all this is upgraded suspension components are in. We dropped the nose of it an inch. Had 1 inch lowering springs on the nose. I still have to get the car aligned, but that's after everything is hooked up and it can move under its own power. Converted to the front disc brakes with big rotors. Fortunately, I don't have to have a vacuum pump for my disc brakes. What I found back in the early 70s, Ford had Mustangs and Cougars with big block 390, 428 cars that had disc brakes on the nose with no power. And what they did was they had a master cylinder that had an enlarged bore, and what that does is that just gives you more volume. And I found one of those and got that put in the system. I believe it's inch and I think an inch and an eighth, or maybe even an inch and a quarter bore on that system there that moves just a ton of fluid. These brakes work very well. Like I say, they're oversized. Obviously, I don't have the weight in the front of the car that what we would have with a V8. So I'm fairly confident that we'll have plenty of stopping power. Anyways, that's where we're at. I'm getting ready actually to pick the car up and unbolt the transmission and move it back away from the motor so I can mount that sensor for the RPM activated switch. I just have to drill the hole and get that mounted so it can pick up the drain plug on the torque converter, which sits about 3/4 of an inch away from the surface of the torque converter itself. So very convenient to have that. And obviously we had to make our own cooler lines and stuff like that, but those are tucked away and you can't really see them, but not that important. I feel fortunate I was able to use the original 289 or small block V8 Ford mounts, and then I made these pieces here to mount to the motor, and worked out very well. Those are solid. That's not hollow tube. That's solid steel right there. Very, very secure. Doesn't allow for any movement whatsoever. And obviously, this is actually for the net gain motors. And I quickly realized that my armature on my shaft on the other side of this end plate, this com plate, was threaded in the center. Obviously, I think all of them are. So basically, I just drilled a hole right there and made an adapter to mount the pickup wheel, and just keep everything centered and drill your hole and tap it for the bolts, and voila, instant speed sensor. So not that hard to adapt a lot of these pieces to whatever motor that you have or whatever motor that you can afford. To deal with what you're working with. And as we say, we try to make lemonade whenever we're handed a box of lemons, and that's a good attitude to have when you're working on this kind of stuff. If you're in your own garage at your house or whatever, these attitudes really help to basically solve small problems that you're going to run into. But I think that's good enough for now. This is where we are, and frontal shot there of the bad cat, and try to think. I believe that's about it. I still have to do some work on the rear differential. I don't have my locking rear diff in there yet to get positive traction on both wheels. That'll happen after everything else is done and it can move under its own power. Try to think. I believe that's everything. We'll bring you back up to speed once we get the sensor in. We'll get our little box put together that we showed you earlier and get it mounted in here. And then we're off to put our battery pack together. I am working on that. I've got my aluminum plates cut out to get that put together. Again, we're going to drop that in where the gas tank used to be in the rear of the car, and just kind of go from there. We'll keep you up to date, and this time I get to push the red button. We'll see you later.